All right, Pickle. Yesterday was National Signing Day, the biggest day on the recruiting calendar. And while a lot of players signed in the early signing period, yesterday was a very big day, I think, for hidden gems, for under-the-radar guys. And especially, I would say, for guys that fall into the category that I am very passionate about, which is, and this is controversial, I know, players who are good at football. That's what I'm looking for in recruits. Like, I get it, and Greg Powers and I have had lengthy conversations about this. But, like, the guys who I end up going after and being really interested in are the guys who are just really good at high school football.
Yeah.
And that seems strange, but, like, that there's not always that overlap. Do you know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. Like, they're the guys that we say, they rule. Like,
well, and sometimes
I'm
they do
looking
overlap.
for guys that rule.
So sometimes they do overlap, and I'll give you a perfect example, okay? Torian York. Torian York is the linebacker at Temple, okay? And he has been one of my favorite players in the state for about 2 years. And he signed with A&M because I think it was a long-time Baylor commit, and then A&M came and offered him, and he flipped to A&M. And it's like, yeah, that is perfect because he was awesome in high school, and he's like a 3-star. Do you know what I mean? But like he's just like watch his tape, and you're just like, oh, you're just really good.
Yep.
I don't know, like
Dawson Pendergrass from Mineola. He rules.
I have a very I have a like a baby brain, and so it's just like that's all that I can do. It's just be like, you're good at football. You should go play football for another school. And so that's what I want to focus on here. Is I want to highlight. I think I got about eight or nine. Guys that maybe you didn't know about that signed that I think are going to be, especially you may have to pay attention to sub-FBS football, audible gasp, but I do think that these are guys who are going to make a big impact where they signed. Specifically because, can't stress this enough, they're good at football. Okay? So let's start with a guy who didn't sign technically yesterday, although maybe he did. He's a preferred walk-on
I'm
at PWI.
So pumped about this.
Byron Nelson quarterback Jake Wilson signed or is going to announce that he is going to be a preferred walk-on at North Texas. So a PWO there at North Texas. This was the leading passer in DFW this past year, threw for like 4,500 yards. Again, it's one of those things that, and I need to check his measurables, and I would love to talk.
Big.
Yeah, I mean, he's a decent-sized kid.
I compared him
6'2", 200. I'm not real sure why everybody, like, he had offers from Houston Christian and Western Illinois. He did not have any FBS offers. But he's going to go to be a PWO there at North Texas after being wildly prolific there at Byron Nelson. This is the exact kind of guy who I think could, like, win the starting job, and then everyone's like, who's this Jake Wilson guy? It's like, oh yeah, by the way, he just turns out he was really good in high school.
Yeah.
You know?
I have seen a lot of Austin Aune, and I have watched a lot of film on Jake Wilson, and I would not be surprised if come fall he's named the starter. I really wouldn't. The other thing is, I remember I tweeted out a comparison of Jake Wilson's stats and Jackson Arnold's stats. Wilson's were way higher, and their measurables were basically the exact same. And Jackson Arnold's is throwing to other 5-stars.
4,100 yards,
Jake Wilson wasn't.
47 touchdowns passing for Jake Wilson. Like,
unbelievable.
Like,
he's fun to watch.
I don't get it. Maybe like I've watched his tape and I think his throwing motion's pretty good. Like, I'm sure there are quarterback gurus who look at that and they can find something like a flaw. But like, I don't know. Like, those flaws seem to kind of fall by the wayside when you're that good, in my opinion. But again, I've got a baby brain. He's just good at football. Anyway, Jake Wilson is heading to North Texas. This one maybe flew under the radar as well. But Tarleton got a commitment from Luke Anderson out of Fort Worth Christian. I think he maybe flies under the radar for a couple of reasons. One of them is that he's a private school kid, and they inevitably are going to be a little bit under the radar. But a linebacker there, he had 13 offers, including a handful of FBS offers. He had offers from places like Colorado State. He had offers from Rice. He had offer from New Mexico State, right? Louisiana Lafayette, right? I also had a bunch of he had offers from like Harvard, right, and some Ivy League schools, right? Princeton had offered, but he ends up going to Tarleton And I think this is going to be a real great grab there for the Texans. I think they're really going to like what Luke Anderson brings. He's a real steal in my opinion there. But Luke Anderson was wildly prolific there at Fort Worth Christian, and I think that Tarleton's going to be awfully glad to have him. So that's another guy that I'm excited about. This falls into the category of I just love his pedigree. Mm-hmm. But Sam Houston yesterday signed Duncanville linebacker Eli Wallace. First of all, if you are on that Duncanville defense, you are already going to be getting like the benefit of the doubt from me. I think you're going to be pretty darn good. He had offers from a handful of SWAC schools plus Houston Christian. He ends up going to Sam Houston. And again, this is a guy who's 6'1", 220, really active. Mm-hmm. Just a real active kind of edge type guy, that traditional outside linebacker. I think they want to put a little bit more weight on him and turn him into a menace off the edge. Mm-hmm. But Eli Wallace, certainly coming from that Duncanville defense, you know he's going to be well schooled. You know he's going to be well drilled. I think that Sam Houston got a real diamond in the rough there from Eli Wallace. That it may be one of those situations where there's so many big stars on that unit that he gets overlooked. But this is a real good grab for Sam Houston. I thought that this was a great grab getting Eli Wallace out of Duncanville. This is under the radar.
Let's go!
Way under the radar. But Abilene Christian,
who is notorious for signing kickers, if you didn't realize that.
Abilene Christian signed Thomas Barr out of China Spring.
They love to sign kickers.
Okay? Thomas Barr is probably the best kicker under 5A in the state. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who made the game-winning field goal in the state championship game. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who made the game-winning field goal against Stephenville in district play. He's got a leg on him. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not a kicker expert, okay? I'm not in the weeds on the mechanics of kicking. I'd love to get a kicking expert on sometime.
That would be fantastic.
Remember when we had our buddy from Australia on talking punting? But Thomas Barr is one of those guys that is a real weapon. And I know Tyler Beatty at China Spring was really happy to have him.
Oh, yeah.
But Thomas Barr signs with Abilene Christian. Again, I don't know what happened. Like, maybe there's just not a ton of spots not a ton of scholarships. But, like, Thomas Barr is an FBS caliber kicker, plain and simple. Like, there's no real doubt about that, in my opinion. So, he ends up signing with Abilene Christian. I think that's a real steal for the Wildcats. Okay, elsewhere. This is you file this under sealing the borders.
Yep.
Isaac Jones from Nacogdoches signs with Stephen F. Austin. This is a guy who is a star at Nacogdoches. He is staying home, right? Because if you didn't know, Stephen F. Austin down that part of the way.
Interesting.
This is an example of keeping like sealing the borders and getting this guy. He played a little bit of quarterback and free safety for Nacogdoches. One thing I'm really interested in, he did a little bit of everything. I think they mentioned this on their signing day release. I'm interested to see what happens for this guy whenever they just like tell him, hey, just play this one position. Like, don't worry about playing everything. Play this one position. Because all the measurables are great. 6'2", 175. He runs a 4.7 in the 40, which is fast enough, right? He's quick. He's strong. He can do a little bit of everything. I want to see what happens when they turn Isaac Jones loose and just say, all right, you're going to be a wide receiver. Or you're going to be, maybe they figure out that you're just better as a safety. Mm-hmm. What happens when he's able to focus in on that? I think this is a real good grab here for Colby Carthel and company there at Stephen F. Austin. Keeping this kid at home, I think Isaac Jones is going to be a name we're hearing about there at Stephen F. Austin. Okay, let's go to Midwestern State. Midwestern State is notorious for this. Bill Maskell is notorious for this.
Love this.
Of signing small school kids that we love and being like, hey, you're good at football. Like, I feel like Bill Maskell and I have a very similar we have a very similar feel for for what I want in players. Mm-hmm. They signed Hawley's Austin Compton. Okay? Hawley's Austin Compton led them to back-to-back state championship games. You remember he missed the state title game in 2021 against Shiner. He was their star running back. He had got hurt, I want to say, like 3 weeks prior to that. He did not miss anything in 2022, and he was
he actually made up
superstar.
for missing
Yes.
in 2021.
He was a workhorse for them, playing running back, playing linebacker, playing a little bit of everything for them. They're going to have fun finding a way to use Austin Compton, who, again, I feel like if he was at a 4 or 5A school, he would be a prospect, like a 3-star prospect or something like that. But because it's at the 2A level, I think maybe he's a little bit overlooked. But this is a classic, in my opinion, a classic Midwestern State player in that Bill Maskell's going to take him and really hone him in and find something to do with Austin Compton because he's just good at football.
I was gonna say,
He's got great football IQ.
He fits Coach Maskell's, like, go out there and be the crazy man in the fight type of thing. You know, like,
Right.
just, I'm not going to sit here and overcoach you. Go do your thing because you make stuff happen.
Yes, most certainly. So I am very interested in seeing that. Okay, let's go to A&M Kingsville.
This is nice.
A&M Kingsville signs Katie Morton Ranch running back Santana Scott. Now, I want to be clear. I understand why Santana Scott is not a 5-star prospect. I understand. Part of it is that he is listed at 5'6", 160. Okay, he's a little undersized. Let's call him. But go ask anybody in KDISD if they particularly enjoyed going up against Santana Scott, who ran for 1,444 yards and 14 touchdowns this past year while splitting carries, by the way. And that's coming off a junior year where he ran for 1,242 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's just really versatile. He's also a big-time receiving threat out of the backfield. He had three receiving touchdowns. They're going to find a way down there. Mike Salinas at A&M Kingsville is going to find a way to utilize Santana Scott. This is a guy who, again, if he's 2 inches taller, is going to be is a guy that is on a lot of people's radar. But because he's a little bit undersized, he's a bit on the island of misfit toys, so to speak. But he is a dynamo, and I think A&M Kingsville fans, I think Javelina fans are going to be really excited about Santana Scott.
Well, and the other thing is, I feel like a lot of times you can say, "Oh, well, he got that many yards because he didn't go up against very tough competition." Like, there is no arguing that. We're talking about going up against everyone in the KDISD district. Like, you cannot argue that he was handed those yards.
Yes, most certainly. I think he is going to be a real star down there at A&M Kingsville. Okay, let's go to UT Permian Basin.
The mullet.
Falcons sign Cuero linebacker Sean Burks.
I bet you audibly yelled when this happened.
I was fired up. Sean Burks rules. Like, Sean Burks was the heartbeat of that Cuero defense this past year. And again, I think part of it is he's a little undersized, although 5'11", 205 will play. He's a little bit undersized, but the dude had 257 tackles this past year. He's just all over the place. Like, he's just a really good big-time playmaker at the middle linebacker spot. And again, if he's a little bit bigger, we're going crazy about this guy. But he's also a guy who's a big leader for them. He was really important. He was really important to what Jared Feacock wanted to do on that defense. And I think Sean Burks, that leadership aspect, I think he's going to fit like a glove there at UTPB. And I think that he is going to be a real star for them. So I love UTPB getting Cuero linebacker Sean Burks. And finally,
this also rules.
we go to Canyon.
Erin Hardigan is somewhere pumping her fist.
She should be. West Texas A&M gets Wink quarterback Cannon Gibson, who is, like, no lie, one of the most prolific quarterbacks in recent Texas high school football
He was
history.
old reliable for years.
This dude was everything for that Wink quarterback or Wink offense. And I love everything about this kid, okay? I love that he can throw. I love that he can run. I love that he understands the offense. I love that he's a coach's kid. Like, everything about this screams like, oh, yeah, you're going to get to the next level and you're going to do some crazy things. Like, I think the Buffs have got to be thrilled to get Cannon Gibson. And again, it's a 2A thing, I think. Like, at least part of it is Wink is a bit out of the way, right? It's a 2A program. But just from an on-field perspective, Cannon Gibson was so stinking good and got so good, so much better year by year as he kind of grew into that role of starting quarterback. Not to mention, he was also like the star, like, safety too. Like, he's playing both ways. What happens when he's just able to focus on being a quarterback? I love this. I love West Texas A&M signing Wink quarterback Cannon Gibson. I'm excited. I'm going to buy a West Texas A&M Cannon Gibson shirt. And by the way, this is a thing that they do. If you think about it,
DCTF NIL deals.
what he is he's, in my opinion, and they're different animals in a bit of respect. He's the new Nick Gerber.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because Nick Gerber, who was that record-setting quarterback at Levelland, right? But he's under recruited. Like, this isn't going to work. Blah blah blah. He ends up at West Texas A&M, and he ends up being awesome.
Yeah, just come here and do your thing. Like, we're not going to tell you no.
Like Cannon Gibson's the new version of that. I'm really excited about that.
So what you're saying is, in approximately 4 years, we'll be talking to Cannon Gibson at the Lubbock coaching clinic, the Great Plains.
That'll be very old at that point. Ooh, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah,
that'll be a different decade for me.
Yes.
Anyway, there you have it. Some under-the-radar Texas high school football signings from National Signing Day yesterday. Congratulations to everybody who signed, whether you signed with FBS, whether you signed with Alabama, or you signed with a Division III school, or a junior college. That is a huge accomplishment to go play at the next level. Congratulations to you. We'll have more coverage of National Signing Day and some news and notes from the recruiting world tomorrow on Texas Football Today.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.